This afternoon, we shift our focus to digital access and the need to ensure women are not left behind in the digital age. Joining us this afternoon is Khusela Diko. She is chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies. Good afternoon, Khusela. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good afternoon, Funda. Thank you so much for having me, and good afternoon to your viewers as well.
No, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Of course, we want to talk about digital access and ensuring that women are not left behind, because it is essentially the gateway to economic opportunities. But before we get to all those issues, as we mark Women's Month, there's also been a very disturbing story that happened over the weekend. We saw Khusela, who was murdered reportedly by her boyfriend, who has since confessed. He confessed on social media. Just your views on that incident during Women's Month, because there seems to be no deterrent. Men have been brought into the conversation where they said they shouldn't be left out. They have become a part of the conversation. We know Not in My Name is there, but still no deterrent. We're seeing such killings.
You know, maybe firstly to pass my condolences to the family of Khusela. The scourge of gender-based violence, we've said so many times that it is a pandemic. It's a pandemic that has to be dealt with harshly by society. You will remember how, I think, during the COVID pandemic, you had government putting all of its resources to fight that particular scourge, and we should be doing the same right now. When it comes to GBV, I mean, we've launched so many campaigns speaking about the fact that it should not be 16 days of no violence against women. It should be a 365-day approach. We have launched, the presidency has launched the National Strategic Plan against gender-based violence, and within that, we also looked at what are the causes of gender-based violence, and obviously issues of economic empowerment of women were at the core of it, the need to engage the boy child in it, the need to ensure that society as a whole, men included, were part of those conversations. It does not seem to be relenting, and I think, unfortunately, you know, you are now having incidences like these where the perpetrators have become so brazen. While the justice system is making some strides, we've seen the laws tightened at that regard. We've seen, you know, perpetrators not getting bail in incidents of GBV. We've seen efforts around the capacitation of our forensic capabilities within the SABC, but more still needs to be done. It worries us when these things are also taken out of what is gruesome enough in life, and then they're also put on digital platforms. It is almost as if you are having people saying, look at me, I can do this. Nobody is going to do anything with me. And it's especially alarming. I think in the last 3 months or so, there's at least 4 or 5 such incidences that we have seen where people, you know, they murder women, they go post on Facebook, they post on X. And these are the conversations that we're trying to have in Fundo when it comes to digital access and digital technology, that the online harms that are perpetuated on digital media, yes, they arise out of society, but when they come onto these platforms, there needs to be accountability there. It can't be that you can go on a platform and post things like that and nobody is able to take it down, nobody is able to do anything. And that's why the Portfolio Committee that I chair in Parliament is beginning conversations about regulating the platforms itself. For example, platforms like X, your YouTube, as well as TikTok. We are saying that it cannot be, it's real life, even though it's superimposed on media, it's real life.
But now there's a conflation around regulation and perhaps now where we're censoring. I'm sure you've seen that when you guys were now pushing for greater regulation to allow for accountability. There were those that were saying, don't censor these spaces. We need to see the brutality and see what life has become. Some of them are feeling that we should put it there, and as much as it's traumatic, they say, let us not try to almost veil and be euphemistic about the realities that people are brutalized in this manner. You have men that are brazen, so let it be all out there. But you touched on an important element around economic empowerment, that if the boy child has been brought into the conversation, men have been brought into the conversation, is it perhaps not the time again to focus all energies now on empowering the girl child or a woman? Because we saw Statistics South Africa last week brought out the unemployment stats. And yet again, unemployment has risen, but women are the hardest hit here. They're really not participating in our economy. So should there be no greater focus yet again on just empowering women, because maybe they know they are in abusive settings, but it's just that they lack that economic empowerment to walk away?
You know, the lack of empowerment of women is at the core of a lot of this gender-based violence that we see. I don't want to blame women. I want to say that the circumstances that women find themselves.
Yeah.
It often happens that a woman is caught up in this cycle of violence. She may have children, for example, and she relies on this person who apparently is the breadwinner, or even in cases where she is the breadwinner, she knows that she is not able to survive on her own. The National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence, for example, went on to establish something called WICONA, which was supposed to be a women economic empowerment network or a platform that sought to look at the challenges that women face in terms of getting into the mainstream economy. Whether it is your lower skilled women, your middle class type of women, or even at that higher echelons, because you'll remember that we've also seen stories of women who are economically successful, but they're still susceptible to gender-based violence.
Yeah.
Now, in all of these, I think while we are focusing on the economy, there has to be particular attention that is given to women empowerment. This is one of the reasons, Mfundo, we fight as much as we do when people want to reverse the gains that we have made, for example, around employment equity. You know, many women would not be in the positions that they are in today if there was not a deliberate attempt to ensure that women are given opportunities and to ensure that they are supported, because we do know that the playing fields are not level. We do know that the gender pay gap still exists. But from the technology side, what we're doing, it's one of the calls that we're making as well, to say that when it comes to the empowerment of women, it also begins with digital access, where women have access to connectivity that is affordable, that is accessible, that is reliable. Not so long ago, we went to an oversight visit in the Eastern Cape. And in this area, we were close to Lusikisiki, where you remember that there was a mass murder of about 18 people. And as we're sitting there, we're sitting there as the portfolio committee, and the people, they say to us, we blame you. We blame you for that massacre in Lusikisiki. And we could not understand, how does it arise that, digital communications is being blamed? And they said, they had no means to call the police. They had no means to call ambulances to save those people on time because there was just no connectivity. Now, you take a situation of a woman who is abused. How is she going to reach out to anybody for help? How is she going to find shelters if that connectivity is not there? But the opportunity that is given to her also to be able to look for employment opportunities, to start small businesses. I mean, and these are examples that we see on a daily basis. In Emanxasibeni, for example, there was a young lady who was selling bananas, I think, in a taxi rank. And the minute she had access to technology, she was able to post her things on Facebook, and people around the area knew that you are now having the small business that's there. And she spoke about growth. You have kids in Bizana who no longer have to travel kilometers to get to libraries because of access to technology. So we believe that digital access really is a critical enabler of economic development. And that's why we're saying, as we continue, or the networks at least continue to roll out these networks, we must ensure that rural connectivity is at the heart of it, and that women must be able to benefit from these opportunities.
So GBV is most certainly a scourge that must be fought at all levels and interdepartmental, that it's not just going to be SABC here. You're going to need small business, you're going to need communications, as you guys were humbly actually awakened to the reality that even just the element of connectivity could have helped to save the lives of those in Lusikisiki. Now, beyond this, there has been another matter that seems to have been very close to your heart as portfolio chair, and that is the SABC bill. Now that we have you here, we've spoken to Save Our SABC. Many are quite concerned about the current standoff, that there was a withdrawal of the bill last year. Beyond that point, there was back and forth, there was criticism. You were among those that said it was unprocedural what had happened with the minister. But then Parliament, essentially, the Speaker would have had to then gazette that withdrawal. It didn't happen. You had NGOs saying, where to from here? Because the SABC needs to understand where it is insofar as funding is concerned. Where's this whole process now?
Mfundo, there was a question that I allowed you to get out of that I didn't respond to, which was about censorship versus regulation. I'm sure we can debate that. Just to close off on the GBV issue, I truly believe that everybody has got a right to freedom of expression, but I think that our Constitution also provides the right to privacy, the right to dignity, to safety, and we cannot have these platforms being utilized in the manner that we do. And I think regulation is not a new thing. You are a broadcaster, you are regulated, and nobody's gagging you, nobody's censoring you. It's just about responsible use of the platforms and the media that we use. On the issue of the SABC bill, and you're right, as Parliament we're very concerned about this matter, and it's not a procedural matter. As far back as November of last year, the Minister had indicated that he intended to withdraw the SABC bill, and this was following public hearings into the bill. I do know organizations like Save Our SABC and Media Monitoring and others would have been in support of that. As Parliament at that time, we said the bill is here. It has taken no less than 3 to 5 years to get to Parliament. Now, it's sitting before lawmakers. We have received the submissions. Let's collaboratively work together, government, civil society, and Parliament, to make these amendments. And to be honest, the changes in that bill were not fundamental. It was things like the Minister saying he does not wish to have the power to appoint a board. I don't think that anybody is going to argue with that. We can temper with those issues. But within the bill also...
But there was the issue around the CEO and the editorial aspect of it. That is it now somebody who is au fait with the news space, or it's business-like? So that, because it does matter to a certain extent, that do you want a person who runs a public broadcaster like a business alone, or you want them to take into account the broader mandate that the SABC has and the opportunity to allow them the editorial independence, that you cannot go and get as much funding from anybody and then the next day you get funding from a specific entity that's now in the news.
Of course.
So all of those things, considerations, is it a business-like person, or do we get somebody who fully appreciates the news cycle?
That's exactly where I am, Fundo. What you're saying is that, you're confirming what I was saying, that the debates were happening, right? And we were convincing one another of those type of things. There was the issue of the editorial independence, there was the issue of a new commercial board and a governance structure. And in that process, we listened to what civil society had said, and we were going to call government for their responses, and obviously the parliamentary legal team. The members who are representatives of the people elected into Parliament would then debate those very same issues and come up with a way forward.
Without withdrawing.
Without withdrawing, right? Which is why we were then perplexed when the Minister decides to withdraw the bill. It takes us back at least 3 years. At that time in November, he indicated that by March of this year, 2025, he would have a draft bill, which again speaks to you on how those issues were not that fundamental. It was things that we could have found one another on. He said he was not happy because the funding model was not there. It gave him 3 years to put in a funding model, and we said it says up to 3 years. If you have a funding model in 2 months, well and good, but this gives you a legal framework within which you can develop a funding model. You are not going to be able to put a funding model into this bill. It's not a money bill. But nonetheless, we stepped down as the committee. He had indicated he needed to to engage with the Speaker and the Deputy President, where he was then told to go make a submission to Cabinet for him to be able to withdraw. And this is important because it's not an individual member's bill, it's an executive bill. So the executive need to concur with them. For the last 6 months, we've heard absolutely nothing.
Which is what has concerned NGOs.
Exactly, and which is why we thought that as we go into this third term, this bill is sitting before Parliament, and we were giving space for the Minister to do the work that he's doing, but the situation at the SABC is getting worse. And when you speak to the leadership of the SABC, they do raise the delays in the bill as one of the issues. They do raise the issues around the funding model as being some of their major contributors to the problems that you're facing. And we're saying, but we can't just tinker and fiddle while Rome is burning. The Minister must allow us to complete that process of that bill. He is going to come to Parliament to make whatever changes he wants to make in the bill. In working with the Minister, yes, we've had differences, but ultimately we're going to find one another on the things that are important for the SABC and the people of South Africa. And Fundo, my last point on this thing is that this is not just about the SABC. Every day that the SABC is not able to carry the public mandate because it's not funded, it also affects our signal distributor, Sentech. I had a conversation with Sentech during the course of last week, and they're saying that they're bleeding about 70 million rand every month in order to be able to cover the signal costs for the SABC. Now, what this means is that as early as January of next year, Sentech is not going to be able to carry the SABC anymore, and we are likely to see SABC going off our screens. So we can't wait. We can't wait, whether it is egos or whatever that is making that bill not move. Those prolonged delays are not helping anybody. I did have a conversation with the minister this morning where he indicated that he's making some progress in the funding model, and I'm hoping that we are going to see announcements from him in that regard very soon.
And on our part, at the very least, we'll try and invite the minister to share with us how far he is with that, because it is important for the broader public. Khusela, unfortunately, we have run out of time. Thank you very much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your Women's Month. And that's where we leave it. That's Khusela Diko, chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies, talking to us about a number of issues as we are getting closer to closing off Women's Month.